to episode 010 of the Modern Dealer Podcast. My name is David Farmer with Entice, and with me, as always, is David Bertoncini. Hey, David, how are you doing, sir?
I am well. I am ready to jump into this one here, and this is going to be a really good one.
It is. So. I did want to take just a minute to say, Florida's weather is pretty crazy. We just, over the last couple of days, we did dodge kind of a big potential historic Category 5 coming towards us. So I just want to give a quick shout out to all the people in the Bahamas that did not fare as well as we did. Donating to the Red Cross is something that we've done in the past. So if you're looking for a way to help, I think that's a good way to go, or any other ways that you can help our neighbors to the east, the Bahamas. They really got hit pretty hard. So with that, David, I do want to get into this episode. I'm very excited about this. We actually started this conversation a few episodes back when we were talking about the 2019 Google Marketing Live event. And if you remember Dr. Ruth,
I do.
Dr. Ruth was talking about two key areas, one being the digitization of the sales experience, and two, the electrification of the automobile industry. And today, we're going to talk about both of them.
The electrification being, of course, we're going to jump into Tesla, which I discovered as preparing for this podcast. A lot of really interesting things that I didn't know about, and that's one of the great things about the Modern Dealer Podcast is we reflect back to a time before the Modern Dealer and gives us some comparisons. And when we get into today's content, it's really mind-blowing what Tesla has done to the industry and how it's totally has changed, not just from a dealer point of view, but for an OEM.
Yeah, and what's really crazy, if you think about the short period of time. So we were selling cars in the 90s together at a Toyota dealership in Pinellas Park, Florida, and everything that we're going to be talking about is from 2003 and beyond. So really just the last 15 years. It is amazing on how many things have happened in the automobile industry. So episode 010 today, we're going to be talking about Tesla and the electrification of the car business. A couple things that we do want to talk about. Tesla has been in the news over the last couple weeks. So as you may recall, SpaceX needed a payload to test its Falcon Heavy rocket, and instead of just launching up some just dead weight into space, Elon decided he would go ahead and throw up his own Tesla Roadster, and it just recently, this last week, made its first orbit around the sun. So Elon is a pretty amazing guy. He's done some pretty crazy stuff, including putting a dummy pilot in the front seat as his Tesla Roadster, which was Tesla Roadster number 1.
Yeah.
Which we learned based on some of the research that we've done. So another thing that was in the news today, David, is that Tesla's app crashed and locked some of its drivers out of their vehicle. I actually took a picture of HLN News this morning as I was eating my breakfast, and they're talking about Tesla, which was pretty crazy considering that our Tesla episode recording was today.
It's funny as I have a neighbor which has a Model X, and she did not mention anything about being locked out of her vehicle, but she was locked out of our elevator because she lost her key fob, which has I guess it's being locked out of either your car or your condo, so one of the two. But no, that's crazy with the app crashing. But
yeah, and so just a point on that. On the news article, they were saying that Tesla's owners were locked out of their vehicles because the app crashed. Now, apparently the app did crash for 3 or 4 hours, but the app on their phone is not the only way that you can get into a Tesla. They give you a card key, which will, Model 3 anyways, they give you a card key that'll open up the vehicle. You get no fob, you get no key. It's just a card. It's just like it's an RFID, looks like a credit card that you place on the B pillar of the vehicle, which will then open up the door. So that's pretty cool. Or you download the Tesla app, and then your phone becomes the key key to the car. So, I mean, we really are living in the future, are we not?
Definitely, because if you think about the last time you can get into a car with a card, it was the Lexus spare key used to come
that's right, yeah.
on a card, and you would like punch it out,
Yep.
and it was a metal key embedded in the card, like a prison break.
Yeah.
I mean, the way it was
was
stuck in there, some Shawshank Redemption style.
Yeah. One other piece of Tesla news about the application or the card. There was a Tesla Model 3 owner a couple months ago that decided to pull out her the RFID chip that's in that key card and have it embedded into her wrist. So all she had to do was put her hand up to the B pillar of the vehicle to open up the door. So and I think that does illustrate, how fanatical Tesla supporters are. And we found that out during the research as well, that there are Tesla has a ton of supporters. It really is a way of life for so many people. Very interesting.
I don't see any Kia owners making that move, or any other OEMs that are that dedicated to basically put some real skin in the game, literally, on their vehicle. Crazy, but true.
Yep. So there's a lot of great information about Elon Musk itself, or himself. There was a great book that came out, I want to say it was probably 5 years ago that I read it. I would definitely highly recommend reading this book. There's a lot of great stories in there. He's really done some amazing things. I have a lot of respect for him for a lot of different things. First and foremost, his innovation and his entrepreneurship. His first company, Zip2, was a company that he sold off to Compaq Computers, which ultimately got sold off to another company. So he made some money with that company, and then founded another company, which was X.com, which turned into PayPal and was sold off to eBay. And then, of course, after that, he founded SpaceX, which I really think is his pride and joy, or at least at the time, doing some really incredible things with SpaceX.
I think he's the only human being that has actually started multi-billion-dollar companies. Sold off PayPal, obviously sold off Zip2, but he's the only entrepreneur on the planet that has started multiple companies that are turned into billion-dollar corporations in so many different industries.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
It's spectacularly amazing, really, if you think about it. So, of course, after SpaceX, he didn't found Tesla, which we're going to talk about a little bit, but he was the first real early investor. And from what I understand, 99% of the Series A funding came out of his pocket. So he was the majority funder in that Series A funding, which really turned the company Tesla into the beginnings of what it is today. Shortly after that, he founded another company named
Solar City, which obviously solar energy, which he uses now for the grid, the wall panel for the charging wall panels.
Powerwall, yep.
Powerwall. That's what it's called. There's obviously not myself being a Tesla owner, but after this episode, I'm sold. I'm definitely sold on.
It's very exciting.
Vehicle. It is exciting, and you had mentioned your love for the Model 3. I've actually had opportunity to ride in a Model S, and neighbors having Model X's. So, I mean, they're everywhere, and you just get really excited about that vehicle. But Solar City, obviously being another one of his companies that he tied in. This actually tying in with Tesla, which, another billion-dollar company, which is just he's done some amazing stuff with.
Yeah, and Solar City just recently was acquired, I think in 2016, by Tesla. So now it's a subsidiary of Tesla, which it was an acquisition of $2.6 billion.
Things to know. Stuff you should know, right?
Yeah, and then, exactly. And then...
the Boring Company?
The Boring Company, another company. I mean, it's just... And there's more, too. There's a Neuralink company that he's involved with right now in founding. So I don't want to spend any more time on Elon in his other things, other than Tesla. So we're going to move forward and get to the next piece real quick. So I'm just going to give a brief history of Tesla, and they're going to move into some additional information. So Tesla is an American automotive and energy company based in Palo Alto, California. The company specializes in electric car manufacturing. It operates multiple production and assembly plants, notably the Gigafactory near Reno, Nevada, and its main vehicle manufacturing facility at Tesla Factory in Fremont, California.
The Fremont plant's an old Toyota plant, the old joint venture with General Motors. That was when you and I were selling cars, is where the Corolla was coming from, where the Matrix was coming from. The General Motors was building the lookalike to it. So your Geo Prism, your Chevy Prism,
Pontiac
Vibe, all those vehicles were built out of that plant. And from what I learned from this episode, there was obviously when things had fell apart between General Motors and Toyota with those joint ventures, they just shut down the plant. Yeah,
and really what happened, from what I understand, and we're going to talk about a little bit, is in 2008, after the recession began, that GM was actually split into two ongoing concerns. One of them being the company that we know as General Motors today, and then another one that was called General Motors Liquidation. So they actually owned half of the plant with Toyota, and Toyota did not want to continue on with that joint venture because they were not in business to manufacture automobiles. So it actually worked out very well for Tesla to be able to purchase that. And then shortly thereafter, or right about the same time, Toyota invested $50 million at the IPO of Tesla. So it's been there had been an ongoing relationship for quite some time until 2017.
Prior to that IPO, there had not been a new American automotive manufacturer to hit Wall Street since Ford in 1956.
Yep.
So it had been nearly 50 years since a new American automotive manufacturer had been on Wall Street, and it was just like, wow, it was really eye-opening to understand that, how moving forward, how Tesla has really been a new pioneer. And going back to just one of the things that they build electric vehicles. Elon actually said, "I want to build the world's best car. It just so happens to be electric."
Yep. Yeah, they talked about that during in 2016 when the Model S was awarded the Car of the Year from J.D. Powers.
Nice. June 5th, 2017, Toyota announced that it sold all of its shares in Tesla and had halted cooperation as Toyota had created their own electric car division.
Yeah, so Toyota invested in Tesla. They loved the idea of what Tesla was doing. They had a great relationship prior to, and I think this is kind of the beginning of the story of the new story of the electric vehicle. We're going to talk a little bit about the EV1 in a little bit, but the excitement around Tesla when it went IPO made all the other manufacturers in the world really take notice that, hey, here's a little upstart in California that is, they're going down the path. It looks like they're going to succeed in creating an all-electric vehicle. Now, at the time, Toyota, they've really had been the forerunner in low emission vehicles, alternate fuel type of vehicles with the Prius and the hybrid type of vehicles. But in 2017, they decided to pull away from that joint venture with Tesla because they wanted to create their own electric car division, have it completely separate, because that is the way of the future. Whether you are an environmentalist, whether you believe in climate change, the electric vehicle is the direction that we need to go as a society. And one of the things that Elon did say is that in the future we will be looking at internal combustion engines fondly. It's like, oh yeah, that was kind of quaint that we use gasoline to power vehicles, but they're really the way of the future of transportation is going to be electricity.
Well, it's like looking back through the evolution of the combustion engine. We were, prior to combustion, what do we use? We use steam.
Yeah.
So it's like, would we have a steam-powered vehicle nowadays? Well, there was steam-powered cars
Yes,
back
there
in
was.
the day.
Yeah.
But as
Stanley steamer.
Yeah, the evolution of time,
Yep.
we moved to internal combustion motors. Now we're moved to electric, and it's just that old mentality that people don't want to move away from it, but it's just the progression of technology.
Yep, absolutely. A couple other points. The Gigafactory in Reno, Nevada, that building will have the largest footprint of any building in the world, and the second largest in volume when completed. Tesla also has Gigafactory number 2 in Buffalo, New York, and has begun construction on Gigafactory number 3 in Shanghai. And just a quick note to point out is that the Gigafactory's main reason for being is to manufacture the batteries that's needed for all of their vehicles.
Gotcha. That which it's kind of the construction of the battery. That is their secret sauce, because they said they won't reveal the order that these all these little tiny lithium ion, looks like AA batteries, basically is what it is in the battery pack. They will not reveal their secret sauce and the final positioning of it, because some are positive, some are negative in different directions. But I guess only those that work at the Gigafactory would know the secret sauce.
Yep, absolutely. That is something that is proprietary to them. And the advent or the invention of utilizing lithium-ion batteries is really what allowed Tesla to become what it is today, to be able to have these extended long-range vehicles that are powered by batteries. One of the story, real quick, and I'll hand it back over to you, is that in the Elon Musk biography, they spend a lot of time talking about the invention and the creation and the design of the batteries. And so, I mean, if you're really interested in learning more, that is the best source that I found to learn more about the manufacturing, the creation of the batteries, which really is the cornerstone of the success of the entire company. But yes, go ahead.
It was actually the two co-founders of Tesla that came when they had sold their ebook. They had said, well, these batteries worked excellent in the ebook, and basically the same batteries that's in our laptops.
Right, yes, you're exactly
They
right.
had brought that technology over to Tesla and said that if we can have a vehicle run on these same lithium-ion batteries, that's the future, and that's how they perfected it. It made it more, longer range, lightweight. That was the accomplishments that they had to first milestones they had to reach was that, and that's ideas they had brought over from a Kindle.
Yep,
basically
absolutely.
is what it was.
Yeah, and what's really interesting there too is that the first real electric car, the Saturn EV1, that had a range of 60 or 70 miles, and it was a super heavy vehicle. They did not use lithium-ion batteries for that vehicle. They used lead-acid batteries, and as Elon said, or as I learned with my research, is that lithium-ion, just that technology, you're able to get at minimum 4 times the capacity. So the EV1 really was the first real production vehicle. And if GM would have continued to go down that path, they could have taken that vehicle, made the one change from lead acid to lithium ion, and they would have had just really an incredible vehicle. But what they ended up doing is they decided to crush all of those cars. But before we get into that, we're going to talk a little bit.
Man.
Yeah, it's insane. We'll talk a little bit more about the history of Tesla and Elon Musk. Like you had mentioned, 2003, it was founded by 2 entrepreneurs outside of Elon. But in 2004, Elon funded Tesla with $6.35 million of his own money and became the chairman of the board following that investment. 2006,
they unveiled the Roadster, which was a project that they had to go over to. They got with Lotus to create that Roadster vehicle. They learned quite a bit from developing that vehicle, because what they wanted to do was take an existing vehicle and just put a battery pack and put an electric motor into it. Easier said than done. The Roadster actually had cost Tesla. It was a $100,000 vehicle sold, but it cost more than $100,000 to build.
Yes.
They were losing money quite a bit on the vehicle. But the good news is when anytime Tesla unveils a vehicle, they do a launch party and they get pre-sold orders up front. And I think they had pre-sold. I think it was like 127 of them initially. They sold a total of about 2,500 of these Roadsters, and that's what was the launching pad, the revenue they needed to really move forward and find out if there's an actual interest in electric vehicles, and there was.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that the initial deposit for a Roadster was $50,000. That was the deposit.
Yikes.
Yep. So
2008.
Yep, 2008, first Roadster delivered, which was Roadster number 1 to Elon. That is the one that is
orbiting the sun.
Orbiting the sun right now. At that point, he becomes the CEO. Another point of fact is that at that point, or around that point, they almost went bankrupt. Musk had to take $3 million of his own money and reinvest it into Tesla to even make payroll. And then just about that time, they were able to get in another round of funding in a Series C funding for $40 million. And their Series B funding included both the founders of Google in that series of funding. So they had the initial Series A with Elon, they had a Series B that included the Google guys, and then Series 3 that included the $40 million there.
And then the Daimler deal, which went really well, which it was so interesting to hear that story about what they did. And, Elon in October, prior to a January meeting, was tasked with like, hey, we need to create an electric vehicle for Daimler, and it was actually an electric motor and battery pack, and they had the opportunity to build a smart car. They took a smart car, and they weren't even being sold in the U.S. back in 2008. This was, and they wind up going to Mexico, buying one down there, bringing it to the States, and they just took it apart to refit it to put a battery pack in it. And they said it had so much torque because it had the Roadsters, a power pack in there, and then motor. The car could do wheelies. Yeah. And when the boys came over from Daimler Chrysler to have that meeting, they were not about they didn't want to watch a slideshow. But Elon was just he was losing them in that meeting, and he goes, "Do you guys want to go check out the car?" And they're like, "What car?" Yeah. And then
we made one.
Yeah, we made one. And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "That's being proactive." I'm like, if you could take a tip from this thing right here, is being proactive and forward thinking. And it's like, hey, let's just bring the car to you, because proof is right there. Once they drove that car, it was done. They needed this $40 million from Daimler to keep Tesla alive at that time, because it was
big turning point. They said
huge turning point, because they were dying on the vine pretty fast.
Yep.
So,
and then the following year, they went IPO, as you mentioned earlier, as the first car manufacturer since Ford in 1956 to go public. Another interesting fact that I heard in, I think it was 1930, there was 300 automobile manufacturers. And in 2010, there was basically 2.5 American companies that were
GM,
public.
Ford, and Chrysler.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's it. So from 300 to 3.
Yeah.
That's some attrition there, huh?
I'd say so. I mean, yeah, he was, to start a automobile manufacturer from scratch, and within just a handful of years to go public and to become an ongoing concern that it is right now. And some of the stats that we're going to get to right now, pretty spectacular.
2012, the Model S, it was car of the year in 2013. So, a first year vehicle to be car of the year, pretty impressive. 2015, my neighbor's Model X, which my wife is in love with that vehicle. That'll probably be her next one of her next.
Yeah, those
vehicles.
are awesome. And I have to say, I love the Falcon doors. And I don't know if you, if you haven't realized, there's a lot of references to 80s sci-fi, including Star Wars. Elon is also a big Star Wars fan, and it's you'll notice it in the way that he names things, like the Falcon doors from the Millennium Falcon,
Right.
Also the Falcon Heavy for SpaceX.
Right.
He has a lot of references to Star Wars, which I gotta love. That's pretty cool.
Awesome. Good stuff. And then Model 3 2017, that became added to their launch, and it seems to be really interesting, as I said, with their launches. Every time they introduce a new vehicle, making an event out of it. Going back to Fremont was it the Model S when it rolled off the assembly line. Just a complete celebration to those first owners, those people that put deposits down on a Model S, and just the excitement. I mean, it's a culture is what they built.
It's a cult.
It's a cult. Culture.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
It is amazing. So in 2017, Tesla becomes more valuable than Ford and GM.
Yeah,
wow.
That's incredible. And one of the things that we did learn during the Google marketing event a few weeks back is that the evaluation of Tesla as a brand is like 25 times earnings, where Ford, GM, even Toyota, they're 3-4 times overall revenue. So Tesla becomes, in 2017, as a company, is more valuable than Ford and more valuable than General Motors, even though it's only selling a very small percentage of the amount of vehicles that Ford is selling and that GM is selling. So the idea of the cult and the idea of the fascination about the success of Tesla, it really is driving not only the sales, but it is also driving the evaluation of the company itself. And then 2018.
Best-selling luxury car in 2018, and I mean it's a good-looking car, that Model S. So that's what captured in 2018 was that. Yep. Which would be a good time.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and get this wrapped up. Then we're going to get into some of the other. Some of the pieces of information, and just real quick, I'll let everybody know that when we do the research for these podcasts, we try to find relevant information that's going to make a whole lot of sense. We want to share that with you as well. So some of the information that we're going to be covering in the next segment is going to be information from the 2016 Shareholders Meeting. This is a meeting. There's a 4 or 5 hour meeting that Elon did to just kind of step through all of the history of Tesla itself. So that's available on YouTube. We're going to share that link with it as well. There's a couple documentaries out there, Who Killed the Electric Car, and then The Revenge of the Electric Car. If you're interested in learning more about the EV1 and then also Tesla, that's available there. And then 2 other points is Elon's master plan. So we've talked about that previously in previous episodes. We're going to go through some highlights of that, plus a couple other online articles. So with that, we're going to take our break from the first segment of episode 010, the Modern Dealer Podcast. Welcome back into the second and final segment of episode 010, the Modern Dealer Podcast. We're going to jump right back in it, David. A bit of history for Tesla.
As of March this year, 2019, Tesla sells the Model S, which is absolutely gorgeous, the Model X, and the Model 3 automobiles. Is now accepting reservations for Model Y, which is going to be that crossover. Yep. Kind of like Toyota did with the Supra, they brought back the Roadster. So 2020, you've got the Roadster and the Tesla Semi, which is 0 to 60 with 80,000 pounds of gross vehicle weight in under 20 seconds.
That's crazy.
Which is just aha. I mean, it's an aha vehicle. Plus, the cool thing about that Semi is braking. I guess semis goes through brakes quite a bit. Yeah. And the braking course is regenerative, but it has like lifetime. Somehow they did something with the brakes. When I watched a documentary about it, this is like about a year ago, but they had talked about how they perfected the braking system that you'll never need to replace the brakes of the Semi. I'm like, pretty
And
amazing.
one of the things that we really have not talked about, and I didn't really do much research or information on for this episode, is the autonomous driving. That's another big part of these semi vehicles, is to be able to have that autonomous driving, have these vehicles. I'm a fan of autonomous driving. I become more of a fan of autonomous driving the more I drive around anywhere. I mean, you see all these people texting, driving with one hand, driving with their knees, not paying attention, all over the road. I mean, me and my wife were driving, I honestly, I think we were going over to Pinellas a couple weeks ago, and this guy, I don't know if he was watching a YouTube video or what he was doing.
Maybe he's watching us.
Maybe he was, but he was all over the road. I mean, I would far rather be following, autonomous vehicle. I mean, it's just far safer. But we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. Another piece of information we want to share with you is that in a Forbes article in October 9th, 2018, for the first time ever, Tesla sold more vehicles than Mercedes-Benz in a quarter. So in the third quarter, July to September of that year, 2018, Silicon Valley automakers sold 69,925 Model 3, S, and X, while the German car giant sold 66,542 vehicles, excluding commercial vans. When we're talking about a startup going from 2008, 2009, selling their first vehicle, within a decade, taking on manufacturers like Mercedes-Benz in the United States, and then taking on BMW. So in January 2003, David, what happened then?
They actually outsold BMW, and the same note to the clients. The research. I got tongue twisted there. Tesla
that was like
also,
me last week.
Yeah, so that was quite of a tongue twister there. But Tesla also outsold the Bavarian luxury car maker during the last quarter of that year, as the Palo Alto, California company accelerates in its production cadence. I watched a National Geographic about the production in Fremont, California. Their production manager, before they opened that factory, they had changed everything about the Fremont, California. In order to reach these numbers, they automated a lot of things, but they actually took the manufacturing director from Toyota in Canada. They brought him down to that Fremont factory, and they said, hey, look, we want to build this many cars this fast. How do we do it? And he says, well, where's the factory at? And he says, well, we haven't really completed the factory. We're going to redo the factory. And he was big on getting the time down in production. They had created this stamping, how they stamped the aluminum to build the doors, because 97% of the Tesla is made out of aluminum.
Yep.
And before that, of course, to make it lightweight for the battery range and such. But before that, no other vehicle had been built like this. So the production manager of the factory made sure that everything was so streamlined. He introduced so many different new processes in order to meet this demand. And because of bringing this guy and bringing in key players, that's how they achieved this monumental feat of outselling Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Bavarian.
Lexus.
It's wow.
It really is amazing. And one of the things that I heard Elon say during the 2016 shareholders meeting is that it took 1,000 times more money, 1,000 times more work to be able to actually create a auto manufacturer. I don't think they had any idea how difficult it was actually going to be when they first started. We're both fans of Grant Cardone and his 10X, where it's easily said that everything takes 10 times longer, 10 times as much more energy, 10 times more money, work, etc. And in this case, it was 1,000 times much more money than expected. So it's kind of interesting. What I'm going to do real quick, David, is I'm going to go ahead and open up this this blog point. So we actually referenced this in one of our previous episodes, the master plan by Elon Musk. This came out in 2006. So this is kind of famous in how Elon was kind of laying out the future roadmap of Tesla. So you got to remember, this is 2006. Mm-hmm. So 2006, they had not designed and deployed the Roadster as of that point yet. They hadn't sold the very first one yet, and they haven't moved on to anything else. So there's a few pieces of information that I thought was interesting in this blog post. The first one being that he says, I have also been Tesla Motors' primary funding source from when the company was just 3 people and a business plan. So we talk about Elon wasn't the founder of Tesla, but he was there from the point there was just 3 people, a business plan, and no money. So he was able to step in with his $600-something odd million to be that first funder. Another thing that he says in this master plan is the Tesla strategy. The strategy of Tesla is to enter at a high end of the market where customers are prepared to pay a premium and then drive down market costs as fast as possible to higher unit volume and lower prices with each successive model. So his original plan from the very beginning was to create this Roadster, which was a premium vehicle. He had to make sure that it was going to be as fast, as cool as anything else in the marketplace, such as a Porsche or a Ferrari, and then get people to be willing to pay $100,000 or more to be able to generate the revenue to be able to reinvest and to build their next vehicle, which was going to be a luxury sporty 4-door car, which was the Model S. The third vehicle that they wanted to create was a low-cost family car, which today we know as the Model 3. In between the Model S and the Model 3, we know that there was a Model X, which was another luxury vehicle, which allowed Tesla to increase their top-line revenue, which allowed them to reinvest in a way to bring out the Model 3. The Model 3 originally was designed to be a Camry-priced vehicle at $35,000. Mm-hmm. Their first few versions of it was $50,000 and $60,000, but earlier this year, I think it was February, they released the first base Model 3, which had a $35,700 price range. So he was able to successfully execute on the plan that he put in place in 2006 within 13 years.
That was your loss leader, was the...
Yes.
That's your loss leader. Model 3 was, we're going to get it down to 30,000 and was a great obviously, that's where the segment of volume and lays for them to get to that, competing with a Camry and an Accord, getting to that sedan segment. But the good news is, with the introduction of the was it the Y?
Model Y?
Model Y, that's coming around the corner, and that's going to be that crossover vehicle, which would be, I guess, like a small version of the Model X.
Yeah,
so it's a more affordable version. Like you have a small version. I mean, the Model 3 is a small version of the Model S. So this Model Y will be a small version of the Model X. Did I say that in order? X, Y, Z?
Pretty close.
Okay.
and what's really interesting, too, is that if you don't know, the moniker for the Model 3 is not really the number 3, it's actually 3 lines. So if you put all of them in order, you got the Model S, then you got the Model 3, which is 3 lines. It looks like an E. Then you got the Model X, and of course you have the Model Y.
Got it. I guess it spelled Tesla.
Sexy.
Ah!
For
That's
real.
the X, Y. It does.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. I didn't even, went over my head.
Yeah. So that's good. That was pretty funny.
Because he wanted to actually build a car that was sexy.
Yes,
he said.
exactly.
That was the whole thing with the Roadster was trying to make it fast and sexy at the same time. And one of the co-founders, I guess, was going through a divorce, and he that was his thought process too. So at 40.
All right, so the revenge of the electric car. This is kind of a second version of I want to say it's a sequel to a movie documentary called Who Killed the Electric Car. Who Killed the Electric Car was a 2006 documentary that exposes the creation, limited commercialization, and the subsequent destruction of the battery electric vehicle in the United States, specifically the General Motors EV1 of the mid-90s. So the EV1 was a beloved vehicle. It was the first and really only production electric vehicle in its time. Very cool looking car. People loved this car. It was very popular by a lot of the Hollywood crowd, and they interview a lot of people in that documentary, a lot of movie stars and TV stars that were owners of the vehicle. The funny thing is that they weren't owners because they weren't. General Motors was not selling the vehicles; they were only leasing them, and what ended up happening with every single one of the EV1 vehicles is that General Motors decided to discontinue the development of it. But then they took it one step farther, didn't they, David? What did they do?
They took them out and crushed them.
They crushed every single one of them.
I couldn't believe that.
Yeah,
I saw that and I was like, why would they do that? I mean, there's another use for the vehicles or part them out or something, but they crushed them like cash for clunkers. I mean, we killed a bunch of motors by seasoning it with silicone, but they crushed these cars.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Candlelight vigil.
Yep, candlelight vigil, and I think that is one of the things that Elon saw as an opportunity for the appetite for electric vehicles, is that people love the EV1 was a beloved vehicle, and there's a lot of speculation about General Motors being paid off by big oil to not continue to develop these vehicles, because it really was quite a success, and being the mid 90s, to be able to evolve that through the 2000s through today, there could have been a completely different General Motors if they wouldn't have made that decision. I think it was Bob Lutz that said that there was his single biggest mistake is to make that decision to crush all of those cars and to end the development of the electric vehicle.
Probably some conspiracy theories behind all that.
Definitely.
Like with big oil and governments, it just didn't seem right. But then it's kind of fast forwarding. Going back a little bit to some of the one of the funds that Tesla received was $386 million they received through the Department of Energy program, which was signed into administration during the Bush era, and actually they were able to capitalize on that, but it was a loan. Yep. And impressively, they took that loan in 2009. They paid it in full with prepayment penalty and interest in 2013.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's one of the things that he talks about in the 2016 Shareholders Meeting. So I'm going to include the YouTube link, or you can do a search for the 2016 Tesla Shareholders Meeting. What's kind of cool about this is that he decided to take the entire day and just kind of walk through the history of Tesla and go into a lot of detail. I sat through about an hour and a half version of the meeting, and there's a lot of great insights to be able to hear the history, and such a short history too. I mean, we think about Tesla today selling more cars than BMW, than Lexus, than Mercedes-Benz on certain quarters. I mean, it's such a fresh new company. And one of the things that he started off the 2016 shareholders meetings was really where they started. And they started with the idea of building an electric car and really taking what AC Propulsion did with their first vehicle and move forward with it. One of the things that Elon said early on is that he went to school and had his sights set on being in the automotive industry with electric vehicles while he was in college. I mean, he ultimately founded a couple billion-dollar companies in between. The point, deal. Yeah, no big deal. Just a couple billion-dollar companies, and sold them off successfully. And so AC Propulsion was a company that created an electric car. Elon was excited about the idea of electric car, not in a way that he wanted to found or start a company, but he wanted to assist them in any way that he could. So he asked them, will you make a production car? They said no. He said, well, can I? I said, sure. So the whole idea of Tesla, to begin Tesla, was to take the AC propulsion drivetrain and hook it up into a Lotus Elise, which is a British company that manufactures sports cars. And that was the beginning of Tesla. It was the very simple idea. Let's at least start this. We'll create one vehicle, and I think originally they said that their plans for the company was fairly small. It was just this one vehicle, this Roadster, and kind of get things out there. And I know you mentioned on the break the one person that spoke also on stage at the shareholders meeting was the chief of marketing for Tesla, employee number 9.
Mm-hmm. And she had mentioned the early years of Tesla and just how, startup feel it felt from Silicon Valley.
Yep.
And just these guys they wound up having, if I recall, 137 patents in the Tesla journey from the beginning in 2003 or 2004 all the way until today. They have 137 patents on the Tesla, and just in the production and the different parts of the vehicle. I mean, just amazing. So they do. She brings some good stuff there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very cool to see that, and just to continue to realize that this is such a young company. A few other points, and really kind of getting into where this makes sense for the Modern Dealer podcast. And what we really want to talk about is getting into their first retail store.
And this is where it arrived in. It was in Los Angeles, California. Was their first retail point. It used to be I think a kids' toy store, kids' furniture store, and what they wanted to do was create a different buying experience. And all the other OEM manufacturers said, no, that's not going to work. And Elon said, I want to give people information, so they're excited to come back and get enough information. I got a phone call earlier today from Grant Cardone's office, and I had mentioned about the Modern Dealer podcast and explaining that we believe in this process that Elon Musk believed in. He was probably not aware that's Grant's process, was give people enough information to make a proper buying decision. And if you give them enough information, they'll be excited to come back.
Yep, absolutely. So in 2008, Elon was adamant that Tesla needed to change the current buying experience. He realized that buying a car was not something that people looked forward to. And if they were going to create a new vehicle, a whole new way to manufacture vehicles, he also wanted to reinvent the way people purchased vehicles. So he didn't want to inherit any of the negativity of the existing dealership model. And this is something that we fight on a daily basis and really have been, I think, in that mindset since we were selling cars. And we'll just kind of give our listeners and viewers a little history about us. So, back in 1996, I started selling vehicles at Sutherland Toyota. Two years later, you came in 1998. This is a high-volume dealership. The first month I started there, we sold over 700 cars. In the first 15 days that I was at the dealership, I ended up selling 18 vehicles. I went on to sell vehicles from, I want to say, 96 to 99 until I moved into management. So I spent, a good solid 3 years at that dealership on the floor selling cars, sold 250 cars per year on average. So, this is from personal experience where we engaged in the non-confrontational selling process in the mid-90s by using what Grant had taught and really provided information overload, give, provide providing information. It was super successful for me as a salesperson. It was super successful for you as a salesperson. You sold more cars than I did during that time period. I think you I don't know if you still hold the store record at the store at 40 or 41 cars. But
yeah, Robin Dunn took that away from me, but that's
did she?
okay. Oh yeah, she did really well. But the whole process was just give people enough information and give them choices. And like we mentioned in a few episodes prior to this, with the episode about Amazon and giving people choices with your software. I mean, it's what was done years ago. Elon did it in 2008 when they opened up their first point. And basically every point you go to, every one of these Tesla stores, you can walk into the one right here in Tampa in the International Plaza and go into their gallery, and it is a completely different experience than what you experience at a typical car dealership. Nobody's asking you, will you buy today if the price is right? Here's a Foursquare. No, they're just giving you the information, and it's like, well, I feel comfortable in moving forward and making a decision. And that's like what he said. He wants people to love buying a car.
Yep. He said the most important mission, when he was talking to the person or when he was talking to his retail team that was building the infrastructure in place, the most important mission of the retail team is he wants customers to visit us and look forward to coming back to the store. That's it. Don't sell, just communicate, make people feel good. Mm-hmm. And it's such a simple idea. And I tried to, in preparing for this podcast, I wanted to create some takeaways, but really, there's nothing to take away. It's very simple. We've been talking about, we have been talking about re-engineering the sales process for 2020 and beyond, creating a process of transparency, right? So nothing is hidden. It is something that is based on providing information, and it's that simple. There's no magic here. There's no sales magic. There's no dust. There's no 10-step process. There's no 15-step process. It really is just about empowering your employees to provide information about the process of buying a car and helping customers and making a process and an experience that customers love. So I don't know how else to communicate that message other than, make it transparent, make it simple, make it the way customers want to buy cars, make customers feel good, just communicate. And I think that's what Elon has been successful doing. And obviously, that model has been super successful for him. And, and that is a disruptor to the industry now that we're looking at.
So wait, let me go back for a second here. They have how many points? They had like 104, 105 retail locations,
so they
galleries?
Have 104 delivery centers in the United States, and that's as of November 15th, 2018.
Okay, and then in comparison to how many points BMW has, Mercedes has, Lexus, how many different BMW dealerships? I mean, BMW has to overshadow that by what, probably 2,000.
Well,
maybe
I don't think it's that many. Worldwide, just in the United States, there are probably 1,000.
1,000,
would be my guess.
So they 10x.
Yes, 10x. Yeah,
10x the amount of distributor points. Mm-hmm. I mean, dealerships.
Yep.
And here, Tesla just delivered a better experience, a better product.
Yep.
And as like Elon said, he says, I want to sell the number one car in the world. It just so happens to be electric.
Yep.
Smooth, man. Smooth.
Yeah, it's very cool. So some additional stats. So Tesla does have 104 delivery centers in the United States as of November 15th, 2018. Tesla operates more than 200 stores and galleries around the world. 120 of them are outside of the United States. It owns the stores and sells directly to the consumer. So this is not the franchise model that every other manufacturer utilizes. It is a disruptor to the franchise model. For good or for bad. It is a new way to sell cars, manufacture cars, and sell directly. It would be important to know that in March 2019 that it did announce that it was going to close all of its locations and sell 100% online.
And then 2 weeks later, they realized we'll kind of maybe not such a good idea. And like Carvana is 100% online, but they do have
physical locations, yes.
Yeah, they still have locations with their vending machines. And, tactically that is a dealership attached to the bottom of the vending machine. So I mean, you'll still need some feet,
you still need to
boots
have
on the ground.
Yeah, boots on the ground, infrastructure, and whether you call somebody a salesperson, you call them a clerk, an assistant, a product knowledge specialist, I think that's less important than the service that customer is providing. And as an industry, we're moving into generations now where the millennials and the generation after the millennials, they're less willing to go through the negotiations. They're less willing to engage with customers the way that we did. I think our generation really is the last generation of that wanting to negotiate, to negotiate, willing to do that, and kind of and I don't want to go too much into that, but yes, the millennials really have changed the way that they want to buy things, and now it's time for us as an industry to change the way that we sell things.
Transparency. I mean, that's basically what it boils down to, and giving them choices. So they couldn't have done it any better. So yep. I think Tesla has, between its history, between its manufacturing of the vehicle, its principles, all the way to the delivery to the customer, wanting to get a chip put into your wrist because you love the vehicle that much. I mean, how amazing is that? I mean, it's an aha moment. What dealers can learn, like you said, is being transparent, but make the buying experience. Really, it boils down to the experience for a customer. And I deal with dealers. You and I both deal with dealers every day, and it's the experience of the products that we sell to our dealers, but the dealers, how it transpires over to their customers. Yep. Dealers are customers to us, but we want to make sure that it's a good experience for them, just like it's a good experience for their retail customers. That's what it boils down to, and my eyes.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. We're going to get things wrapped up here real quick. So I'm just going to say, what can dealers learn if you're watching this podcast? You are a modern dealer. I would really look at rethinking the entire sales process for what it's going to look like for 2020 and beyond. And that's a recurring theme that we're talking about here at the Modern Dealer Podcast. How can you add more transparency from a pricing standpoint, a product standpoint? How can you offer online assisted purchases? The customer is still going to have to physically have that vehicle delivered to them or pick it up. So I would look at how can you make an experience at the dealership that a customer loves. And I think we can also learn from what Carvana has done with their online or their in-store vending machines or their delivery to the dealership. And then also the last thing that we can learn is how can we look to transform our salespeople into process specialists and just help the customer through the process. So with that, David, I'm going to turn it over to you for any final thoughts before we wrap up 010.
And wrapping up 010, there is a salesperson that I give a shout out to, which did follow this process and actually delivered a vehicle from Punta Gorda all the way to Tampa. My little sister-in-law, man, she's crushing it. 21 cars last month. That's awesome. But just to make sure we wrap up properly here, hopefully you're taking away a lot of good information from this episode and how to morph your dealership into a modern dealer. Be sure not to forget to subscribe to the Modern Dealer Podcast. Ding, make sure you do hit and turn on notifications and ensure that you do subscribe on iTunes also to the Modern Dealer Podcast. Follow us on Facebook, whichever way you can connect. Be sure to comment, like, and share. And in that is a wrap. Forrest Gump.